Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi, and welcome back to That Trippi Show with Alex Ashlow. This week, we're still working on our series about what's next. We'll debut that in the new year. Today, one dictator flees into the arms of another. Trump's propaganda machine is getting clearer, and we continue digging through your questions. So please keep them coming. Alex, where do you want to get started?
Oh man, it's been kind of a crazy week, really, from an international standpoint. I do want to get there. First, Joe, we got to talk about the Hegseth nomination. I know we talked about it last week. We encouraged everyone to make their voices heard. The big problem now is the other side is doing the same thing. That MAGA machine we've been talking about all year, I mean, they really went heavy on this one. They mobilized. Joni Ernst, a Republican senator from Iowa, she, by the way, herself was a survivor of sexual assault. She was talking about all kinds of concerns about Hegseth, but now all of a sudden she's supporting him, basically after one meeting. And the word on the street, and there's a good Politico article about this, is MAGA was just totally fired up about this. It was clear that Trump world didn't want this to be the start of a fight, but I want your take.
Look, it's simple. You've got the propaganda machinery, the networks out there that bang away on support for Hegseth. You've got Elon Musk and others calling these senators and telling them, "Hey, we're going to primary you, and I'll fund the opposition to you when you're up next." And you've got Donald Trump pushing as well. So, look, it means all the people who think, yeah, somehow the moderates in the party will tune it down and save the country from the extreme MAGA elements out there. Forget about it. It's like I said, I think on the last show, you think if you're expecting journalism to stand up to this, think again. If you think the moderates in the Senate, or what used to be moderates, because they won't be, they'll be held hostage like the party has been, and growing, by the way, in terms of its ability to mobilize the MAGA extremes. And they're afraid of him. It's not so much that they're afraid of Trump, but they are certainly afraid of losing to a MAGA challenger, particularly if that MAGA challenger is going to have Donald Trump's endorsement and Elon Musk and the tech bros funding it. And so, ergo, the bending of the knee, the totally capitulation. Oh, I don't have any concerns anymore about sexual assault and his beliefs about about women in the military, or even though I was a woman in the military and I was a victim of sexual assault, no, I'm probably going to give him a pass. So none of this should be unexpected. This is how Trump and MAGA are going to govern and run the entire show, and there will not be, we'll see if we can count on one hand in the first 2 years when the people you would think, they're smart enough, they know what's really going on, they know what's at stake, but guess what? Put their personal power, need for being relevant and reelected and all that stuff instead of standing up to what they know is wrong.
It just seems to me that last time, and I remember doing this show when this happened, but last time there was a transition, it just seemed like it was very clear the mobilization that was happening on both sides. But if you think back to even 2017, even the first Trump era, there were some guardrails. We didn't see them till later. But one of the biggest ones was he didn't know what he was doing and MAGA wasn't ready. Everyone should look at this and say, MAGA is ready this time. This is who they want. They're mobilizing in support of it. And this is the machine that got Trump elected. These are the base voters that got him elected and are now flexing their muscles. We cannot just sit back and assume that incompetence or apathy on their side is going to save us this time.
Well, no, I mean that's been the case. Project 2025, all of it. The think tanks have cooked up exactly what the plan is. The networks that were, Twitter was pretty much, it was Trump's private, blog for America, as I've said before. A platform that was specifically built so he could talk directly to like 17 million supporters back then in 2016. But those networks have grown and gotten stronger. And, Elon Musk has bought it, and amplified it. And it's now in the hundreds of millions of ability, I mean, to sort of promulgate the MAGA lies and propaganda. It's not just Fox News anymore. It's not just Breitbart anymore. It is a messaging network in which and I've said this before, Democrats learned that after 2004 in the Dean campaign, what they learned was, hey, you can raise a lot of money by emails, by sending emails out. The Republican Party, for the most part, the right, the hard right, learned that no, you can build an incredible information distribution network and connect directly with those individuals out there, your supporters, and have them amplify and empower them to push what you want to be getting Ernst to pay attention to. You want Hegseth passed, and there, by the way, I've got tons of people. They're going to be banging on your door. So yeah, they've got that. They've built it. It was something they've built over decades, and it's not going away. I mean, that's not what's going to happen. So, and again, think again if you think journalism is somehow going to watch what happened in the campaign, look at it. They're not going to stop. They're incapable. They're being overwhelmed by this thing to the extent that they literally, wittingly or not, amplify it. It shows up in it's Sinclair Broadcasting in your local market. So, and then you have all that seeps into every other network out there until whoever made the most noise today leads the news, and guess who's making the most noise? So that's part of what's going on here. It's not going to change. The pro-democracy needs to start building its own networks. We can talk ad nauseum about that. We're trying to do that with Says Us, but we need more of them. And that's still not it. It's not, I mean, what I'm saying is this is more than changing our message, changing our messenger. No, we have no way to communicate. We are not in the networks that they've built. Although I think we need to do that too and disrupt them, counter their propaganda with real information.
I'm glad you got to the media networks, which kind of gets to the other thing that I wanted to hit this week before we got to some more listener questions. This one might be a little esoteric for some of our listeners, but for you and for me and all of our friends through Vanguard Africa, this one is really near and dear to us. Trump announced Kari Lake he wants her to take over Voice of America. And Voice of America might not be something that a lot of folks maybe know about or listen to here in this country. And I know we actually have a decent amount of international listeners, but this one's pretty bad. Given what Voice America does, given who she is, I wanted to get your reaction to this.
Yeah, Radio Free Europe, anti-autocratic propaganda everywhere. They take on that propaganda everywhere. They're very anti-autocratic messaging, and particularly like in places like Africa, Eastern Europe, the Americas, it is a dependable voice against the dictators, and basically there aren't very many dictators who like the voice of America. Let's put it that way. So this is Trump starting to create his own propaganda machine now from within the government internationally. I mean, Kari Lake, I mean, come on. So no, this is going to hit hard. I think I mean, it's a huge change in trusted, I think, for most people out there. If you're listening to Radio Free Europe, for example, you trusted the voice of America as projecting democracy and freedom against dictators, strongmen, and it's going to be horrible, I think, to see what changes there at Voice of America. I think it will be the beginning of Trump creating the networks that Elon Musk bought, that Breitbart built, Murdoch built. Those are all privately funded, and they're overwhelming truth with disinformation, division, and hate. And now we've got literally what looks like maybe the conversion of Voice of America taxpayer funded into Trump's international propaganda machine from within our government. No one should be surprised by any of this. The problem is most Americans, a lot of them don't know what Voice of America is. And frankly, we're getting back to, um, the networks that exist in the country that they own and operate and spit propaganda out every day are going to continue to do that with whatever the next evil enemy is. Enemies within, enemies without. Those networks will be pushing that. And then, of course, we'll have Voice of America pushing Trump's venom in places, who knows, Germany, UK, all those places, Eastern Europe, sure, doing Putin's. And it'll be interesting whether it's how much of it is Russia TV saying, hey, this is great. Listen to the Voice of America. They may even put a Voice of America show on Russian television by the time this is all over.
Well, what's fascinating about it, and for those who don't know, Voice of America, the predecessor, it was incorporated later, but its origins were literally in during World War II, that we were worried about fascism spreading and specifically Nazism spreading in South America. So but it was guerrilla radio before that in South America, anti-fascism. And now obviously you got ready for Europe, but now their kind of main target for the past 10 years has been Russia and trying to broadcast pro-democracy messages inside of Russia. And the head of Voice of America right now is banned from Russia. I kind of think they're going to welcome Kari Lake with open arms. So speaking of who else is welcome in Russia with open arms, Joy, I do want your thoughts on Syria. Obviously, Bashir al-Assad is out. He fled. The rebels finally took over Aleppo. He fled, and I bet you can guess where he went. Flight radar tracker, which is one of my favorite things to watch. There's either coaching search flight tracker or deposed dictator flight tracker, and they're both really good. But that's a really scary situation in Syria. But guess where he went?
Yeah, Moscow, of course. Well, I mean, look, that's who was propping him up the entire time. And so, look, this is another one of those things, though, where it may be scary. The outcome is not necessarily going to be all that bad. I mean, what I mean by that is Russia really is spread thin. It's part of the reason this happened. They couldn't they couldn't keep up the fight for the back Assad while Ukraine was still creating all the problems there. I mean, this is one of those things where it's more a sign of Russia's weakness, I think, and how difficult it's been for the Biden administration to hold firm and kind of spread Russia out. And it succeeded here, I think, in a lot of ways. I mean, Russia was way overextended and could not keep Assad afloat. Of course, that's where he was going to go. But now it'll be interesting to see what takes its place. But we're a lot better off that it's not Assad and that he's gone.
So we'll see. I do want to. We'll probably have a couple of national security people on, likely talk to Trippi again in the new year more about it. But I want to get to a couple more questions. And we put out the call last week. I do want to reiterate it. If anyone does have questions, we are starting to put together our series on kind of what's next. Well, like Joe said in the intro, we'll launch that in the new year. In the meantime, your feedback is really what makes this show what it is. So keep them coming. This is from Benny in Ohio, and Joe, this one I'm really curious about. From Benny, I got to thinking about your how to move forward question, and I'm worried that in 3 years we're going to have the same kind of primary fight that doomed us in 2015 and 2016. Purity tests all over again, and candidates will emerge that MAGA can tear apart again. So I wanted to know, from your perspective as a campaign manager, two questions. Number one, what is the quote unquote ideal type candidate to win? And number two, what does anyone thinking about running for the Democratic nomination for president actually need to do right now? Joe, I think I want your take on the ideal candidate first.
There isn't one. And what I mean is that you can't ever paint, let's paint the picture of the ideal candidate. No, there will be 9, 10, 15 of them running. One of them will emerge. And frankly, whatever message and messenger emerges out of that fight will be the new direction of the Democratic Party. It could be the same old direction, okay? But no, what each of us can do is look at the people who are start to, and they're already starting to be out there, and get behind your choice early and help convince others in the party, person that you believe is the right choice, help them win, because that's what, nothing else. All these, oh, we'll have some autopsy. Look at the Republican Party. They had their whole autopsy after 2012. By 2016, and by the way, they were earnest about it. That's what they really wanted to try to do, the autopsy that came out of 2012. Instead, the rank and file, the people out there through the primary process decided, no, we want Donald Trump, the exact opposite of the autopsy. So that's what I'm saying. We can have our autopsies. Joe Trippi can have his ideal candidate. You can have yours, Alex. But in the end, no, we're going to have a bunch of people in primaries in places like New Hampshire, uh, South Carolina, et cetera. And one of them is going to emerge and be the nominee of the party. And so if that's a Bernie Sanders, I'm making them up, but then maybe ends up with 12 more years in the wilderness. Who knows? Maybe it's what starts to take Trump out. But I don't think you cannot project who. Now, what does anyone thinking about running for the Democratic nomination for president do right now? All of them should understand one thing: either we re-emerge and fight for whether you want to call it a rebrand or the new brand of the future generation of Democrats. Either we redefine this next generation of Democratic leaders that will be emerging in that race, either we redefine the party or none of them will have a chance. In other words, the demonization, the poisoning of these networks and what they've done to demonize and poison the party, the brand image of the Democratic Party, particularly with voters in the out there in the in constituencies that you have to win to have any chance. We're done. We will not be. They will demonize whoever it is because of their networks and how insidious they are. So unless all of us become part of the rebrand and fight it with creating our own media networks, our own social networks, our own information distribution networks, and all the candidates running for president agree that's what we're going to do for the next 2 years. We're going to do that and redefine the future of the party, because if we all of us do it our own separate ways, we're going to get crushed. None of us have a chance in 2028. Therefore, by the way, that was what happened with the DLC. I know, oh my God, people have grown DLC because it was redefine the party as pro-business and everything. I'm not talking about the conservative, liberal, any of that stuff. I'm talking about it was a concerted effort. Everybody who was running or thinking of running for president in 1992 said, we are going to join together and develop new strategies, new messaging, and rebrand the party, or none of us are going to have a chance in 1992. And that's how Bill Clinton was the one who grabbed that mantle, ran with it, and won. I'm not trying to predict who that would be, or even who of all the presidential candidates would agree to start working together to build a stronger messaging and network out there, as well as message and policies. But our best shot is to do exactly that. All of them for 2 years build and rebrand the party and our ability to communicate, and then spend the next 2 years fighting over which one of them is best at leading the party to defeat MAGA and what Trump has wrought. But I mean, that's sort of where I'm at on that.
Well, I gotta ask, I mean, how long do we have? I mean, especially now, very different than in 1992 when we didn't really have any kind of mass internet communications. This stuff all happens so much faster now. So, I mean, it seems like we need to kind of agree on this rebrand like yesterday, right?
No, it's not going to, none of that happens that way. It's going to be people making real arguments for where to take the country. And by the way, none of this is going to happen in a vacuum. Donald Trump is or is not going to deport millions of undocumented immigrants in the country. If he does, splitting up families, all that stuff, there are going to be competing answers to how we solve the problem. If he doesn't, MAGA will be, whose doors will they be banging on then? There's all these things that are going to happen. One of the things that's clear is because the senators are clearly not going to moderate or do or stand up to Trump, you're going to have all the extreme, crazy stuff that he's talking about is going to be attempted. Doesn't mean, he'll accomplish it, but he's going to attempt it and he'll have the real people out of their minds running these places, right? So that's going to have an impact too. This stuff that he had a mandate, he doesn't have a mandate. It was the slimmest margin of anybody, in like, geez, since 19th century, I think. But anyway, my point is, it's not, they're going to run out there like we own the world. We have this massive mandate and we're going to do everything we said we're going to do. And it's, yes, we have to stand up to that and fight it. But what is one of the things the most important things that didn't happen, and I'm glad it didn't, is we don't have the House. And so he's got all three things. And so he's not going to be able to say, we stopped him from doing what he wanted to do. If he stopped, it'll be because he lost some votes with Republicans in the House or the Senate. We don't see any of that happening yet. But there's going to be a real struggle out there. What I'm saying is there will be, this, Gavin Newsom, it will be out there really soon. You'll have all these candidates out there talking about their view and picking their fights on where to stop Trump and MAGA or where to agree with them. That's going to happen too. And it'll be interesting. One of the things I think that's really always been true in these moments is that progressives and the more liberal elements of the party after a loss like this start generally, usually become more pragmatic about like, why are we going to fight over? Normally, they'd fight over everything, every inch within the party that we would fight. And I'm talking as a progressive, like back in the 1980s with Carter, 1979. But what happens is after three or four of those kinds of losses or close calls, you get sort of the party gets more pragmatic about how to fight. What's going to be interesting is I don't know. I don't know if that'll happen this time or not because of what the stakes are, because we're communications so fragmented. That's why I think it's really important that you somehow, everybody from AOC to Westmore to Gavin Newsom to Whitmer, Ro Khanna, Seth Moulton, any of the possibles, and I know I'm leaving Pritzker or other people, but all of them need to, I think, basically come into agreement about rebuilding the party and its brand, and coming with a common message to take Trump on over the next 2 years. That's common. That's not every flavor for itself, and then and only then break out into your, whether it's flavors or policies, whatever differences in the 2 years to get the nomination. If that fight breaks out right now, people will start picking and choosing, and I just think it'll be a fight between wings and donors, and I think we really need to rebuild right now our messaging systems, our information distribution, we need our own social network. That's why I'm out there and you're out there trying to help launchsays.us.
And I think actually, believe it or not, we're just about out of time today. Joe, anything else you want to hit today? We got a ton more to cover, but we'll be back next week.
Yeah, look, I think, we're kind of grappling with a lot of these questions ourselves. There's not a whole lot of clarity. The only thing I do know, having been through, every single cycle since 79, is that there comes a time when you have to really assess the brand of the party and how we all contribute, I mean, to that brand. And these fights between wings are right now, particularly with the strength of the other side, which is just basically unified and has built these propaganda machines out there. We need to get unified in our response. And that means a lot of us putting our own individual, and particularly the leadership with electeds, our own, policy differences aside and recognize that we've got to rebuild the party itself. And then look for who it is that we can all get behind and win in 2028. It's going to take all of us, and we all need to be together and build things together. It's about building trust, building community, and I think also thinking about, particularly within the party, about being more pragmatic about our differences. But anyway, thanks, Alex. And if I've been meandering on this show, I apologize, but that's what this one was. So thanks for listening to That Trippi Show. Says Us is now live. Sign up and free yourself of the Elon doom scrolling and do it at sez.us. The Android app is hopefully going to be in the App Store within a week, and hopefully will be in the Apple Store right after that. So the app is coming. Please join us, help us build a pro-democracy social network and a information distribution network. We need one. This podcast will always be free and is part of Resolute Square. Yeah, another place where we're trying to create a media platform for shows like this and others. So check out the latest at resolutesquare.com/Trippi. Please subscribe to That Trippi Show and leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen. Also, if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, and a lot more of you are, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next episode. You can always send us a question to thattrippishow@gmail.com, and we're actually trying to get to them, or leave us a question or review on iTunes. We'll see you next week.
Resolute Square.